Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's panel webinar, Building an Intelligent Tech Ecosystem to Win Guests and Drive Revenue. Today's webinar will be presented by representatives from Stay in Touch, Sendine, and Duetto. So before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent to all registrants within 48 hours. All attendee lines are on mute. If you have any questions or comments, we would ask that you use the question box in the middle of the control panel to the right of your screen. You can see a little graphic there showing that. We will handle all questions at the end of the presentation. If you want to learn more about Stay in Touch, please visit our resources tab at stayintouch.com. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. First up from Sendine, we have Michael Fries, who is the Senior Director of Business Solutions from Sendine. Next, we have John Lingos Webb, who is the Senior Director of Global Partnerships and Alliances at Duetto. And then we have our very own Priya Rajamani, who is the Vice President of Implementations and Support at Stay in Touch. I'd like to remind everyone that today's webinar is in a panel format. Meaning that I will read out a series of questions designed to facilitate a discussion and dialogue among our experts in a number of different issue areas surrounding technological ecosystems and revenue. There are 4 subtopics in each area, and each segment will last approximately 15 minutes. Going on to our webinar agenda. The first segment is how tightly integrated technologies can help drive revenue at every stage of the guest journey. Next, we will cover how automation, self-service, and actionable data can help your team do more with less human capital. Finally, we will go on to how action KPIs, PMS data, and channel strategy can be used to drive hotel success. And then after that, we will have a short attendee Q&A session. So with that, I'd like to move on to the first section, how tightly integrated technologies can help drive revenue at every stage of the guest journey. So Michael is the informal section lead, so he will have 2 questions as opposed to 1. So first question goes to Michael. Why are seamlessly integrated platforms necessary for delivering a highly personalized guest journey?
Well, there are kind of 2 sides to this. So first, if we take a look at how the world has changed over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, we realize that our customers, or guests in this case, they have quite high expectations on when it comes to the personalized experience that you were talking about. And it's always been the case for luxury brands, but it's become more and more important also for other segments. And hospitality is all about experiences, and the best way to enable this experience is, of course, to know as much as possible about the guests and their needs and requirements. So if we take a look at that, and then we look at the fact that, competition is fierce these days, and everyone is, including our guests, they're bombarded constantly with impressions and offers. And in order for you to cut through that kind of marketing buzz and all that, information that everyone is receiving on a daily basis, you really need to communicate with the guests at the right time, with the right content or offers, and through the right channels, be that through social media or web or through emails in various shapes and forms, like transactional guest communication or marketing emails. So if we take those points, you kind of quickly realize that we need to be able to understand our guests. And we need to use data from a lot of different sources in order to do this. And we need to be able to communicate with our guests on every touch point throughout the guest journey. And this would be impossible to do if you don't have this seamlessly integrated platform. So if you would just have these siloed environments that, people typically have, then it's going to be difficult to get the big picture and understand your guests, and also to have this communication to them at every stage throughout the guest journey, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on. So it is really key, and it used to be something or seen as something that is nice to have, but today it's really a necessity.
So today's travelers are demanding more personalization, yes, but they're also highly concerned about privacy and their own data security. So how do you square that circle? How can hotels collect the first-party data necessary to build these guest profiles while also um, recognizing concerns surrounding privacy?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously over the last couple of years, CCPA, ERP, GDPR, they have, set up some new barriers and for anyone that wants to collect data. And the first party data is becoming increasingly important. And it's really up to the hoteliers to ensure that they are able to collect all the data that they need in order to provide the service that they want and in order to do the marketing that they want. So if we look at Sendine specifically then, and the portfolio that we have the possibility to collect a lot of different guest data based, of course, on the guest's consent. So you have to make sure that you have all the consents in place, depending on which region you're working in or what kind of guests that you have. So we can, for example, help hotels to collect information about anonymous website visitors, identify the interests that they have or where they come from, and many other data points. And then, hopefully we are able to have them sign up for a newsletter or some marketing. And through this, we will then create a profile in the CRM that will be then populated with all this anonymous information that we know about the visitor. And now all of a sudden we have a name for this individual. So we have name, email address, and we can start using all this information to do targeted marketing towards this individual. And once they, of course, do a reservation or they stay with the hotel, then we can collect preferences, and we know what spending they have and what they're buying and so on. So all of this data is, of course, then used in order to build up these highly enriched profiles. And you can take this a step further, of course, and make use of a member portal, for example, if you have some kind of loyalty program or some member program within the hotel. And the nice thing about that is, of course, that the members then, or the guests, they are managing their own profile. So your data quality will increase and you will get more data from them than what you had. So that's how we would typically collect data. The important thing here is that you as a hotelier have to ensure that you are collecting this data in the right way. So you need to make sure that your privacy policies are, stating clearly what data you're collecting and how you are going to intend to use this data in order to stay compliant. But that's typically how we do it, and we can collect data then from a lot of different sources. I think we have roughly 300 different integrations, so we can collect data from many different sources and create this seamless unified profile based on data from all different places, if that makes sense.
Very interesting. Turning to John with Duetto, how can a seamless integration system between an RMS and a PMS lead to more accurate forecasting and faster, more optimized pricing decisions?
Yeah, thank you, Justin, and thanks for having me. I think it's a great question to kick off with. I think with an RMS, PMS is our not our only integration within the ecosystem, but certainly kind of the most important as it stands right now. And I think the thing that I like to speak about is not how many integrations, but the depth of the integration that we have, and at varying levels that we can integrate, because I think it unlocks really key pieces to what you're saying, the accuracy of the forecast and really the optimal pricing decision. So there are three key factors I would say that I like to talk about when we look at a very tight integration with a PMS partner. One being the freshness of the data, the depth and the granularity of that data, and then the flexibility that you have to utilize that data. So most importantly, I would say is a real-time integration, right? And now, again, I think Mikhail was talking about stuff that used to be a nice to have. I think this is in the bucket now of a need to have, right? The real-time connection gives you that access to the data quickly when you need it, when you need to make a strategy change and a pricing decision change. And then the depth of that data as well, just as crucially important. So highly detailed, again, real-time on the books data to understand when to capitalize on that demand and when it's coming in. And one, again, key piece of data depth that we're really trying to get to with our PMS partners especially is folio level data. So, this really unlocks a whole new realm of forecasting granularity. It allows you to be more proactive, not having to wait for settlement of that folio of the guest, and allowing you to really just track and forecast more accurately, and then also make decisions with your strategy and good pricing decisions. And then last not least, when you're able to utilize this data. So in some RMSs, there are scheduled optimization schedules and optimization cadences when that pricing decision is pushed out. What we've done, and I think something that creates a little bit more of a bespoke feel to it, is our users can schedule that themselves. When they would like that optimization to take place within Duetto, so that they can, again, use the real-time aspect of the data to make sure it's fresh, use the depth of the data, and then also to make sure you're optimizing at the right time of day. This will vary based on property, based on location, based on type of property. So really making sure then that you also have control on when you are optimizing those pricing decisions during the day.
Excellent. Priya, many legacy PMS platforms are now touting a cloud-based open API architecture. How does this differ from native cloud systems like Stay in Touch?
Thank you, Justin. So typically cloud-enabled or cloud-based application is any type of application that is hosted in the cloud. And many times it refers to applications that were originally created to run on premise, but then got moved to the cloud. For example, a legacy application that was hosted on premise, but moved to a cloud VMware. But the application's core code or architecture remains the same or unchanged. A cloud native application or a pure cloud application is actually designed to take full advantage of a cloud hosting architecture and its core components like elasticity, automation, and is typically hosted on a certified cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. One of the biggest advantages of cloud is its elasticity, and at Stay in Touch, what we do is basically adapt to capacity on the fly every day. All our systems are set to auto scale based on load and performance metrics. And being a cloud PMS allows us to be untethered, not tied down to an office or a location, and also allows us to support, say for instance, unmanned operations end-to-end contactless. So for example, where employees can be anywhere but manage operations remotely and continue to provide the same level of customer service, even if they're not located near the premise of where your servers are located. And it also facilitates integrations with partners like Sendine, and where we are able to provide an end-to-end contactless experience with the PMS and our integrated partners.
Excellent. Issue number 2. 1 second. How automation, self-service, and actionable data can help your team do more with less human capital. So Priya, you are on deck for the segment lead. Self-service makes the welcome experience more convenient, but will it take the human element out of hotel service?
I think technology has often been viewed as a risk to replacing human capital. But primarily, technology is an enabler. It's a tool. It allows you to do your job even better. A cloud-native PMS has the ability to present guests with a choice for their welcome experience. A guest can enjoy a convenient mobile self-check-in through their own smartphones, or have a socially distanced contactless check-in through a guest-facing kiosk. What this does is basically it frees up your valuable staff bandwidth, and your team now at the front desk is able to engage in a more personalized interaction with the guests, which eventually what it leads to is a lasting guest relationship, and which is the end result, and having a repeat clientele as a result. So yeah.
Excellent. Many hotels are facing persistent labor shortages, even in the face of increasing travel demand. This can especially be felt in the field of housekeeping, which is seen as particularly labor dependent. How can a mobile PMS help?
So one of the biggest benefits of a cloud-native PMS is accessibility anywhere and everywhere. So typically, housekeepers that use Stay in Touch can go completely mobile. They can use their PMS on their phones. And what this in turn allows them to do is it allows them to provide real-time updates on room statuses directly to the front desk, therefore making the return of rooms to front desk to check-in guests quicker. And it also allows for your room attendants to check people out in case of discrepant rooms. In discrepant rooms, you've got housekeepers coming into a room and noticing that the guest has actually left. Front desk doesn't know about it. They use their mobile device to immediately update the room status. Your front desk now has the room to check in the next guest. And in many cases, it also eliminates the need for a traditional front desk, a housekeeping desk attendant. Usually in the past, you used to have housekeepers calling in a desk attendant and telling them that, please update the room status now to inspected, so that front desk has the latest view. All of that can now be eliminated because you're mobile, you're in the room, you update the status on your phone, and the front desk agent gets to know immediately and offers it to the next customer.
Excellent. Mikhail, how can hotels capitalize on the insights generated by comprehensive guest profiles?
Well, I think that's what we're all hoping to do, right? So as I mentioned earlier, we allow our customers to collect profiles and enrich them over time. And if we look at the past, many organizations, they were just hoarding data without doing much with this data. Today, and especially if you look at CRMs like Sendines, we're able to really make use of the data and feeding this data into all the different touch points that you have with the guest, and providing them with content or offers that are relevant for the guest, and through this increase the chances of having the guests returning back to the property. But you also have the possibility to do more up and cross-selling once the customers have booked with you or once they are on property. A simple example here would be that maybe you have someone booked a room with you, and they didn't book any breakfast package. So in your pre-arrival emails, maybe you promote the breakfast package automatically, of course, or you promote restaurants. And when you do this, maybe if you have information about the guest, that the guest is vegetarian, then you're not going to serve them an image of the restaurant with a nice steak on it, for example. So you can use this information that you have in order to place the information that the guest wants to have and what the guest needs to have. But you can, of course, also use this in marketing by offering the relevant room categories when you're sending out offers, or you're using a relevant time period. So you're looking at, you can automate campaign emails, sending out new campaigns to guests based on when they booked their last travel to you, or based on location. So for example, I'm based in Germany, in Bavaria, and here we have our summer school break in August. So if you're going to do marketing for family vacations in the summer, then it's probably not ideal to market this for a stay in June or July. So you can use all this information in order to make sure that you get the guests to your property when it suits them, and you can use it for up and cross-selling. So a lot of different possibilities there to capitalize on that insight and on those profiles, really.
So the next question might have a little bit of overlap with that, but this is for John. How can automated RMS platforms deliver truly optimized rate strategies in the face of today's increasingly dynamic and volatile travel market?
Yeah, it's a great question. Something I think that has become really top of mind since COVID has kicked off. I think everyone's trying to do more with less, and especially on the revenue management front. But having these integrated systems and ecosystems in general, I think give a lot more ability to automate these different processes. And I think when you look specifically at revenue management platforms, as you asked, Justin, they're handled differently in different systems. I think one thing that's fairly unique to Duetto is we've created controlled automation, as we call it, which is not an on-off switch of fully automated or no automation. It's again is giving the user the ability to build a hybrid solution, so they can kind of concentrate on the windows that they'd want to concentrate on. So they could set automation for publishing rates beyond 90 days out, so that they can have, they can kind of offload that booking window to an automated system. And then when you come within 90 days of stay, they can control the pricing themselves to make sure that they are taking into account different things that might be happening in the market, with the market changing so much right now. And then, I think also another interesting automation, which doesn't really have to do specifically with pushing a price through your revenue management system, but I think you're seeing a lot of systems across the board. And again, as we have systems talking to each other more intelligently, I think notifications and alerts become much more robust and usable across the board. So, I think this kind of creates a managed by exception approach, right? Again, we have the ability for users to customize alerts and notifications within Duetto. So, they can get called to a specific, say they have a spike in cancellations, right? Which we see a lot right now as COVID. COVID regulations are ever changing. They might have a spike at one of their properties in cancellations, and you want them to concentrate on that. So make sure that there's an alert that pops up for that. Or conversely, you might have an unusual spike in pickup, which is fantastic news, but you want to make sure that then you're concentrating on that specific stay date or weekend that is seeing that increase. So I think really the automation can be used in many different ways, but I think what will be interesting to see is, again, as you start looking at the communication between PMS and CRM, how we can really make automation more cross-platform, because I think that's where you really start to see the huge advantages come out of that. And again, I think the advancements have been massive recently, just because of the need for this increase in automation and the volatile market, right? That's kind of driving innovation around this, and I think it's extremely interesting and fascinating to see, and I hope it continues at this pace. But it's taught us a lot already, and I think we've made great adjustments in our system, and I think I've seen that in fellow my fellow colleagues in their systems, and I hope it continues to go that way. But those are a couple that I wanted to highlight specifically for us, are kind of the flexibility of automating the platform and the notifications and alerts to make sure that those are appropriately set to call your attention to where you need it, so you can automate some of your time, but then also still have a hands-on approach when you need to.
So in the spirit of sort of cross-platform integrations, are there ways that we can utilize this comprehensive guest profile that we're building through all these touch points to not only sort of affect our marketing strategy, but also affect the rate strategy as well? And that could be to either John or Mikhail, or Priya too, if you
Yeah,
want.
certainly. I mean, that's I think one of the next big things that are coming, right? When you can start to look at what capacity do we have. Can we start hooking up the RMS to the CRM, send out campaigns automatically based on the needs that we have and how the market looks right now. And I think there are plenty of things that we can do and that will come fairly soon. And I think that was what John was hinting out when he talked just now. So I think that's going to be a lot of things happening in that space, in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that really is the next step of where we're going, and I think where we're all hoping, and I think that where guests should hope we're moving, right? Because I think it creates a better experience for our guests, who ultimately that's the goal of having these connected systems, right? Is providing a better experience for the guests and a more personalized experience for the guests. So absolutely, I think you'll see the connections between CRM and RMS accelerating significantly, and really leveraging that data to get the right price point in front of a specific prospective guest. But it's absolutely coming, and you're seeing some of it already happen, and it's going to continue to happen, I think.
And then even also, of course, connecting it to other systems like the PMS as well, so that you really know the whole way and automate it, and the front desk knows directly also who is this guest really, and I hate this question, have you stayed with us before? That should never happen, right? That's the worst possible question you can get when you check in. But as the systems gets more and more connected, we're getting away from that. We are able to focus on serving the guest and making sure that they have an awesome stay at the property, and that helps us to then have more loyal and satisfied guests. That's what it's all about, I think.
Yeah,
So
I think.
Oh, sorry, Priya, go.
Sorry. I think that technology advancements have helped us to come out of how we used to be. We used to be operating in silos. The PMS was kind of burdened with having all the information and having to do everything with that information. Now, with having these technology enablements where we are integrated, you have seamless integrations, depth of data that John mentioned, having that depth of data exchanged with other integrating partners, making those integrations easy and accessible and available, at a fraction of the price at what it used to be, is just allowing us to have a 360-degree view of the customer, sharing it with integrated partners who offer, services that are allied. So that allows the customer then to benefit from all of that. So I think that's the end goal, and that's where cloud technology has been such a boon. So yeah.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Priya, I was going to ask. So we're talking about building this highly granular guest profile to make increasingly more nuanced offers to our guests. But at the end of the day, you have to fulfill those offers. I know that you spoke a little bit about how we can make the back of the house operations, housekeeping, maintenance, room service, all of that more efficient. But maybe you can speak to that a little bit more, that we're not just looking at automation from the marketing end or from the pricing end, but how it can also benefit the back of the house service delivery end as well.
Absolutely. I think, just capture of guest information in a way that can be extracted easily and made available to teams so that they can use it is key. So just having, like data in notes and notes, if we used to have pages of guests, it's not, it's great to have that information, but not being able to capture it in a way that you can share it interdepartmentally, intra-departmentally, that kind of makes you more limited in your offering. So talking about just automation, we spoke about housekeeping, giving them the ability to be mobile, giving them the ability to have access to that guest information, updating the status, and then informs our front desk. Similarly, the front desk updates on guest feedback that then goes back to maintenance, goes back to F&B, allows customer, say for example, allergies to be communicated, or how he wants a particular room to be serviced, or what kind of placements the person at the room or a maintenance person needs to take care of. All of that is available through both the PMS as well as the integrations to be able to service the customer needs with more granularity and with more correct data capture and dissemination.
Excellent. So with that, we'll move to the next segment. We were just talking about building these guest profiles and then how to actually implement the recommendations from those guest profiles. But now we're looking at the data itself and asking how can we action KPIs, PMS data, and eventually channel strategy to drive hotel success. So John, this is your segment. What are the most important data points to capture to inform a hotel's rates and pricing strategies?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Obviously, the data is of utmost important, and I think some of the most important data pieces are really stable table stakes today with revenue management systems. So historical reservation data of the utmost important to understand who and when the guest booked and at what price they did so, and then also booking pace and cancellation pace, so you can better understand a typical guest behavior or what's going on in your specific market. And the one that I believe to be hugely powerful, and especially when you look at pricing strategies, is your web shopping and web conversion data. I think that's a very interesting piece of data that can help influence the strategies.
And how can an RMS leverage these data points to produce more granular market segments and rate strategies?
Yeah, so then kind of jumping into the next level there and how it can affect your strategies. I think when we take two of those pieces of data that I mentioned, so if you look at connecting pace with your web conversion, right, being able to distinguish really the success of a different strategy or a different promotion you have out there. So you can get to a new level of granularity when looking at the web shopping, and it lets you really kind of create sub segments of business. So not just only a AAA or a bar rate, but let's say, for example, you can with web shopping, you could look at a traveler at the same rate and how they acted. So if you put a $199 a night rate out there, what rate did the travelers from California versus an international traveler convert at? Or also, if you put that $199 rate out there and you see a regrets skyrocket, then you know that pricing is too high. So it really kind of creates an ability to do almost an A/B testing on what's working there and looking at this crucial web traffic data to see how it's being received. And again, that I think is a very it's not taken into account as often as I'd like it seen with some revenue management systems. But I think getting into the insights on how a price is being reacted to when it's out in the wild, and then creating your strategy around that and being able to alter your strategy based on what you're seeing from that data is really how you can make the best adjustments to your rate strategies and segmentation as well.
Excellent. Priya, what roles does the PMS play in truly personalizing the guest experience?
Thank you, Justin. So the PMS, just due to its nature and placement, at every touch point of where the staff is, it automatically becomes the source system of any hotel tech ecosystem. This is where the data capture and guest identification begins. And this is what allows for eventually a tailored, customized, and a personalized guest journey. So ensuring that your PMS captures these data elements as well as has an architecture that allows for these seamless integrations. John just spoke about folio level data. Giving the ability to exchange folio level data to your integrated partners that then allows you to see customer spend, be able to forecast based on that. Those are some of is key for the PMS to start that process so that everybody else can then benefit from it. So having robust data elements, having a form of being able to exchange it with our vendor partners, it allows for a plethora of services and offerings to be made available to our guests. For instance, custom offers on upgraded, either the room type or services, or being able to integrate messaging and staff interaction. So real-time interaction with staff on, what they want in a room, what they don't want in a room, to facilitate immediate delivery, or even a feedback mechanism wherein you're able to tell the staff that you like this, you don't like this, compliments, complaints, all of that, is how a PMS facilitates that personalized guest experience.
Mikhail, how can hotels leverage business intelligence to drive consumer engagement, profitability, and loyalty?
That, Justin, is a really good question. Me personally, I love business intelligence or BI. As we are in the business of collecting guest profiles and all the data around it, preferences and all their stay data, so everything that you have in the PMS and in other sources, we benefit highly of using BI tools then to even better understand our guests. So we have all these massive amounts of data, and with the BI tool, we can really drill down into this data and see, who are our guests? What age groups do we have as guests? How often do they return? What kind of room categories do they like? And what happens with the ADRs or other key performance indicators? So we can simply dig deeper into this data with the BI tools and use this insight to tweak our offerings, maybe even change our strategy completely based on the target audience that we want to have. Maybe we are not targeting the right audience, but we realize that a certain segment that we have of our guests, they are really generating a profitable stay. So we can use this in order to provide the right offers, do the right up and cross sellings, and through that we are maximizing our revenue, or we're maximizing the share of pockets from the guests, and at the same time, hopefully, we're offering exactly what the guest is looking for. And if we do this right, we're not only increasing our profitability, but we're also increasing the guest satisfaction. And if we do this and we provide highly personalized touch points throughout the whole guest journey, that's the first step towards really having loyal and returning guests. And that's really what we want to have, because those guests are the best ones to have. Those are the cheapest ones to get, having them return to us, and hopefully everyone is happy, including then, of course, the ones that are looking at how profitable the business is.
Excellent. So I think before we move on to the actual Q&A, it might be a good idea just to take these sort of sentiments and take these more abstract ideas of what kinds of KPIs and data you should be focusing on, and maybe apply it to the coming months and the coming year. I know the industry, it's been touch and go for the past couple of years, but it looks like now things are smoothing out. You have demand is increasing. What specifically, from the points of views of all of our respective platforms, what specifically can hotels do to succeed in the coming months, in the coming year? And anyone can take that.
Well, I think you need to start looking at, what kind of, how is the booking situation? How does that look? What kind of offers do you have? And start building some kind of strategy on if you have a need period somewhere, how can you fill that one? Look at who are your best guests by using the BI and using all the data points that you have, and see how can you drive these guests then to your hotel. And once you have that, start looking at, okay, so what other offerings can we provide? How can we make sure that we are satisfying their needs and we are maximizing the revenue that we get through up and cross sellings, and trying to really make sure that we engage with the guests in the best possible way, meaning then speaking their language, and talking about things, marketing things that interest them. I think that's the key to it, at least. And then do an honest try of doing that, and then adapt if we need to. If we see that things are not really working out, or we see that other things might work out, go for what John said, A/B testing. Try different things, and you will be surprised how things can work out so much better if you try to do other offers, try other subject lines, try to personalize everything a little bit more, try to automate more things. I think that's the key. We have little staff, we have high turnarounds on staff. Try to automate as much as possible. Try to be open, try new things.
Priya and John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think what Mikael said is right on, and I think I think really just not being scared to leverage the data you have at your fingertips, right? I think sometimes it can be daunting, but look at new opportunities to go out and try some new things. I mean, I think again, when talking through through web shopping, web conversion, I think as we see different, depending on your hotel's, your property's business mix, or maybe a group of properties, in different countries, we're going to see pick up at different times. So I think also using location is really something that can bring some huge benefits in looking at where your travelers are coming from, where your web traffic is coming from, to do something more pointed towards that group or that segment. So I think, really, I would just say in general, not to be scared to use the data that you have. I think there's a lot of insights, and again, it's one thing that I love about what we talked about earlier, right? With bringing additional automation, I think the hope is, not to replace people on property, but to free up time to make more strategic decisions, and to use the data for insight purposes and learning purposes. So instead of being bogged down with day-to-day work that you can automate these systems, lean on automation to free up more time to be strategic, and to leverage this data to make strategic decisions, and bring more success to your business. Because it is I think it's going to be even the rest of this year. I think it's going to be ever changing with what we're seeing, and I think so. Staying on top of that is hugely important. So go out there and try new things, and use the data that you have available.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think continuing on the same tone, utilizing the automation capabilities of your system, leverage them, use them, as well as if you are hesitant to try it on mass scale, try some, use your data elements to try a small pilot, see how that works, then scale up. Use the integrations that you have in place, maximize and leverage on them. So I think everybody is looking at new partners, new vendors, new innovations, new way of utilizing the existing system. So I guess the point I'd like to add to that is you have them in place. Now leverage them with better processes, better procedures, and make sure that you maximize usage.
Excellent. So that concludes the main section of the presentation. So I'd now like to open the floor for any questions. Just a reminder to please submit any questions that you might have into the question box, which is in the middle of the control panel, which should be on the right of your screen. So I am actually, and I'll give a few seconds for some more questions just to enter into the queue. But I do have one question, and that's it looks like it's open, so anyone can sort of take a shot at this. But one attendee asked, how do you define the best guest that you want to target?
I think Mikkel alluded to it a little while earlier. So, you talk about customer acquisition costs, that acquiring a new customer is a lot more expensive than retaining a customer. So having a customer already on property, that is already your best customer. That is the customer that you need to make sure is repeatedly now coming back. You've now got a foothold into that guest. He knows your property, he knows your people. He's likely to make repeat visits to you. So make sure that you use that time. Make sure that you use that guest engagement platform to connect, to communicate, to get as much data as you can to be able to leverage that relationship from the get-go.
I think another thing, and I agree, once you have a guest on property, if you do your job well, you have a higher likelihood of having that guest return, obviously. If we look at it from maybe a CRM perspective, many CRMs try to score guests on how valuable they are. You can look at many different metrics to do this. One metric that is quite frequently used is the so-called RFM metrics. So you look at recency, frequency, and monetary as 3 parameters, and you're using this in order to classify guests. So you look at, how much money are they spending with you? How often were they with you? And when was the last time they were with you? And you can use this in order to classify the guests. And so I came originally from Next Guest, and we merged with Send9 about a year ago. And on the Next Guest side, we put customers into 9 different segments, ranging from premium best customer and then going down. On the Next Guest, on the Send9 side, what we're doing is that we're using this RFM score, but we're also adding predictive analysis. So we're looking at how likely is it that this guest will actually interact with you or come and stay with you again as well. And this is technology that we have from our gaming industry platforms, basically. So you can use all of this in order to figure out who do you want to target based on how valuable it is and how likely it is that the guests will come back to you.
Yep, and just quickly to add on to that, I think another plug for being able to access folio level data in a timely manner. Looking at total profitability, right, from a revenue management standpoint, not just what they booked their room at, but looking at what their total spend is, and how you can better engage with them to increase that kind of total profitability look of that guest.
I agree 100%.
So that would actually segment into the next question. So this attendee, their ears perked up about the folio, and they ask, what more specifically can you do once you have immediate access to this folio data? So I guess that would be directed at John.
Yeah, so it really kind of it opens up a lot of opportunities. I think what we see most commonly used is from a reporting standpoint, being able to look at which segments are spending the most, and then use that in order to better target. And I think also when we start to look at being able to create different pricing strategies around packaging, so looking at opportunities to yield and increase revenues through different aspects of your property. Again, given what your specific property has to offer, but looking at different ancillary spend opportunities and where those are most successful and most profitable for you. So is it is it pricing and packaging, something along the lines of cabanas or golf packaging or other ancillary spends that you can package together in order to increase total spend and total profitability, and having insight in at the folio level to see where those dollars are being spent, where those dollars are being allocated, really just gives you again, a better strategic foresight into what will continue to happen. So I think just it helps you get into those opportunities and action on them, and where to build out your pricing strategy as a whole.
And of course, also use that for marketing purposes. If you see that the cabanas have, a certain appeal, especially for certain guest segments, then you should use that in your marketing as well. And I mean, in some cases, you get more out of a cabana than you get actually for the room, which is interesting to say at least.
Excellent. So I am seeing two more questions. The first one, this attendee asks, we've heard a lot about how a PMS can contribute to efficiency, but is there any way to directly generate revenue through a PMS? So I would imagine, Priya, this is for you.
Sure. Talking about directly generating revenue from the PMS, it starts right from the time you're capturing a booking. It is generating a revenue. But talking about accelerating that revenue, here we are speaking about upgrades and upsells and offers that we can make to the customer. One of the things that we in Stay in Touch, propagate, and we definitely tell our customers about is using the ability of your customized offering for the customer, wherein you've got upsell options to different rooms, obviously, but also offerings for breakfast packages or special additions onto the room, things that you can add to your stay that because as an end customer, when you're looking at your phone, you've got a lot more time, whether you're traveling to the airport or traveling from the airport, you look at the offering, you're more likely to make the purchase than when you're on the property, wherein you at that point in time, all you want to do is go to the room. But making those offerings available to the customer prior to his arrival, pre-arrival, allows them to have a more captive audience to make that sell. So that is, definitely a way to make that ancillary revenue grow and capture that the attention of your captive audience.
Very good, very good. So the final question I'm seeing here, this would be, I guess, primarily directed towards Mikhail, but obviously anyone can add in. This attendee is asking, well, their hotel is trying to increase direct bookings, and they ask, how can we, in this world where there are so many inputs for attention, how can we, what are some strategies for capturing guest attention?
Well, I was kind of touching on that a little bit on some of my questions today. I think it's really trying to understand who your guests are, and then use this information in order to tailor and personalize the communication towards your guests. And if you want to reach guests that haven't stayed with you before, we want to do that too, right? Then of course you can use the CRM data, the data that you have, and you can download that data and upload that into various social media channels like Facebook or others, and do lookalike modeling. So you don't download all your profiles, that wouldn't make sense, but you would download the profiles that matches the criteria of your best guests, and you use that in order to build lookalike models and target people then on social media or other platforms. And what you do then is that you make sure that you drive them to your website, and if your website is then also personalized and it shows the guest that, hey, this is a nice looking property. This looks awesome. I mean, we're selling a dream. We're selling emotions. So you need to have a website that really talks to the guests with that as well. And then the idea is to try to have everything steer the guests towards the booking engine that you hopefully have connected to the website, because we want to maximize the direct booking. So we want to drive them to the booking engine as much as possible. So on the Sendline side, we build websites. So we have a content management system that came from NextGuest originally. And this is really specialized for the hospitality as well. And it's really about just driving the guest towards the booking engine. And I think that if we start building websites, we have seen 132% increasement in guest conversions compared to, and this is on average if we look across our customer base. So you can get more customers once you get more customers to the website through marketing, either direct email marketing or social media. Once you get them there, you need to push them in order to the booking engine. That's what's all about. I hope that answered the question. It's not super easy, but you have all the tools. You have all the tools that you need in order to do it, and you need to speak the customer's language. I think that's the key thing, really.
Yeah, excellent. And I think just to add onto that, as well as speaking the language of the customer and marketing appropriately, I think also pricing it appropriately, right? Having
that is talking to the customer.
Exactly. Having the ability to kind of independently and dynamically price your channels differently, segments differently, and not being beholden to bar and being able to create that direct incentive to book with you is of the utmost importance. And I think price.
And I think one point to that to John is also, to me, it's extremely important that you try to extend this personalized journey throughout all channels. So we talked about email marketing, we talked about social media marketing, the websites, personalized pricing. But then also, once you get the customer to the booking engine, the journey shouldn't stop there. You should show the right rooms that are relevant for this particular guest, with the right pricing, as John said, and then really have a seamless experience throughout all different mediums. That's really what you're aiming for. And once you have that, you have good chances, I think.
So we did get one last minute question during that dialogue. This attendee has a number of concerns about accuracy and the prediction of automation. And they ask, do you have a great example of automation or system forecast or predictions on Stay in Touch or Duetto? So this would be for Priya or John.
Again, I think if I'm interpreting the question right, it talks about how are we giving accurate data? Now, the system is obviously capturing the data based on staff inputs. So the data that is captured is true to the extent of capture, which is, again, pricing, room booked, average length of stay, pace of when it was booked. All of those are capture points that are irrefutable. There are true stats and tell you more about the customer. Folio spend tells you exactly what the customer spent. So all of those are statistics on total value of the customer, customer spending pattern and all of that. But it also talks about how do we use automation using that data. So I think the most upfront example that comes immediately to mind is using integrations, because all the data is going automatically to those integrated vendors who then utilize it in those components. Also using it in terms of reports, scheduled exports that allow the management to see information being reported accurately to take those strategic decisions, as well as inherent automations within the system that allow you to actively, allocate a room to a customer using, the data elements on that reservation, or sending customer a specific offer using the data of the customer. So I think those are some of the examples when I'm talking about real-time use cases or use cases today on the PMS.
John, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I think when we I think part of the refreshing nature of what we said when we want to ensure when we certify our integrations, having them be real time really does aid in the accuracy of that data, right? So not having stale data that you're working off of is one of the most important things you can do with the data coming from a PMS, especially when you're making pricing decisions. And I think within Duetto, I think also one thing that we saw that was very important to do right at the beginning of the pandemic was for the sake of forecast accuracy and for forecasting accurately, we clearly, same time last year was not a good benchmark to utilize. So we really built, again, a lot more flexibility into the windows in which you could forecast and price against. So as short as same time last week, which was much more pertinent, same time 2 weeks ago, and giving that flexibility to not rely on same time last year, which might not be an accurate benchmark. But I think we strive for the most accuracy possible, especially when we get to the point of certifying in integration and having the real-time data there, so you can refresh it on demand when you need it and be able to look back at the correct windows of time that you're forecasting. It can take into account. I think gives a lot more accuracy, especially in the market today that we're seeing, which is ever changing. So that's I believe that was what the question was potentially getting at, but I think those are two key pieces there to help.
Well, I am not seeing any other questions in the queue. If you think of a question after the presentation has concluded, feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is justin.derisi@stayintouch.com. That's justin.derise@stayintouch.com. And I will make sure to forward it to the appropriate speaker. So we are actually running up against our time limit. So with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation. Of course, I'd like to thank our esteemed panel for joining us today, and of course, all of the attendees who chose to spend this hour with us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
Bye.